What's going on, guys? Evan the Elden Ring enthusiast here bringing the Elden Ring gameplay commentary. This time we're going to be doing a rush to the Misericorde and the Golden Scarab. And the Misericord is going to be what we use to get the Golden Scarab or Misericord. I'm not sure. I don't speak French. I believe that's a French word. So, what to look forward to in this video. So this is pretty no nonsense. I will hit a couple NPCs along the route, but a lot of this is stuff you're going to see before. For the example, the start of every character is to go run and get Torrent, then to go get the summoning bell. Then from there, we're going to go immediately run and take care of some chores and go get Radagon's Source Seal. And basically, there's a lot of things you've probably seen before, but it's all supposed to culminate into basically farming Flame of the Redmanes, Radagon's Source Seal, and a Misericord to essentially trivialize all of Elden Ring. I don't mean to exaggerate, that really will be the case. So if you're looking for a build that is, say, more melee and backstab type orientation than just going for the typical mage build, this might be for you. But if you're looking for something that maintains a great deal of the challenge of Elden Ring, this probably isn't for you. This is something that's going to really trivialize most of the content, but I really like this run, I really like this route because you're not necessarily obligated to go all the way with this build. And what I mean by that is, it would be completely viable for you as a player to essentially farm your Misericord, farm your Flame of the Redmanes, or rather locate, find, farm, whatever word you want to go with, and then go get a Golden Scarab and then basically switch up the build and do something else. We won't be leveling anything except Vigor and Endurance, which is something you're probably going to see on every build. Maybe you're playing a no endurance run, in which case you don't actually even have to level that endurance. You don't have to level anything. You can do all this from level 1 or whatever level your base class started at. So that is really up to you. So the first thing we're going to do here is run out of there. A lot of the things I grab along the way is really just my OCD to grab every item I see. Essentially, you could ignore just about everything along this run except for the namesake items I mentioned, but the first thing we're going to do is run up towards the first merchant here, Kale, along with the church, because we want to essentially hit as many bonfires along the way as we can, because having warp points saves us a lot of time, along with not getting lost. If you've never made these types of runs before, you're very new to Elden Ring, it's very likely you're going to get lost along the way. That's totally fine. There's also nothing you'll need to shop along the way except for a dagger. And even the dagger is optional content, but I would strongly recommend dropping the, I don't know, between, I think, 400 ruins for the dagger, because it will save you a lot of trouble towards the end of the run. But the first thing we're going to do here is hit through some of our tutorial messages and run and get Torrent. Torrent is your horse in Elden Ring. It makes overworld travel, world map travel, much, much easier. Running on foot takes forever. So the first thing pretty much every build should do is go and grab Torrent, which you basically do by hitting the correct site of graces along your route. There's really no need to fight anything through here unless you're just feeling it, nor is there any need to grab that item. Like I said, you could just run straight through and straight to the site of grace up ahead by gate front, which will allow you to get your horse from this game's version of a Fire Maiden. But a couple things to think in mind. There is actually a sword we want in the carriage. You can see it immediately on your right coming up below the site of grace. That is because it is significantly better than the spear early game, at least for our purposes. But additionally, it has a slightly higher crit than other weapons that you have access to at this point in the game, aside from, once again, a dagger or something like that. So this build is all about quick and easy and dirty crits with a weapon art, which is Flame of the Redmanes, which once again you will see throughout this build. This is by no means sort of a new method of cheesing Elden Ring. I would more so describe it as a tried and true method of cheesing Elden Ring. But I do think it's fun, and it does at least require some sense of timing, because it does have a pretty long wind-up on the weapon art, with more range than you'd expect, but less than you'd hope, is probably how I would describe it. We'll also grab some flasks along the way. Those are good for a lot of reasons, of course, but you do have sort of a HP, FP starve thing because you are attacking content out of order, right? Because you're going for what is probably something that most people feel comfortable farming around, level 30 to 50 once they have an upgraded weapon, with a 0 to +1 weapon. I mean, you are really taking things out of order when you do this. So a little detour here because we're going to grab Whetblades along the way. These allow you to put weapon arts on your weapons, upgrade your weapons, and otherwise modify your equipment. And this is important for pretty much any character build, and being that it's right here along the way, there really isn't a good reason not to pick it up while you're here. So now we've got everything we need from this area. We're going to warp down to the starting areas here, because if we go back to the first church, if you will, Church of Ella, you can meet Ronnie here, and Ronnie will give you a Spirit Calling Bell along with the ability to actually summon some wolves. We don't actually use this much throughout this run, but if you go too far into your character's progression, you won't actually be able to get this for free. You'll have to buy it from the Roundtable Hold. So I would strongly encourage you to just swing by here and grab it real quick. Once we have all that, we've now got our horse, we've now got our summoning bell, we have essentially everything we need, and we are going to charge ahead through the content up towards Stormvale Castle, which, if you were following your graces, this would kind of be your first big boss if you're going through a sort of linear progression without doing the side quests. Once again, new player, do not recommend it. It is not necessarily easy content if you just follow the main quest. Elden Ring sort of encourages you to explore other areas. So we hit Stormhill, grab the Golden Seed. Golden Seeds are, of course, how we update our flasks. Same thing with choosing your starting gift as a flask, because once again, or Golden Seed rather, because it's just nice to have more flasks early. If you're going for a 100% playthrough, quote unquote, I would start with the Lands Between Ruin, because there is nowhere else in the game to get it except as a starting gift. But nothing there is really anything you can miss. A lot of folks kind of, at least I used to worry about, what is the best starting gift? Or, what will I miss? There's nothing there that you can get besides the Land Between Ruin that you won't find somewhere else. For example, even taking the Golden Seed early results in a Golden Seed being removed from the world map later. Same with Crackpot, etc. Things that have a finite number in the game, this doesn't let you get like a +1 per run. Which, once again, isn't that surprising. So we're going to talk to the NPC here to get a better summon than the wolves in a lot of instances, which is the jellyfish. The jellyfish does poison enemies, which makes it useful for cheesing a lot of bosses and just generally making the game a little bit easier. Upgrade our flasks, get our split allocated, etc. All right. So once again, we're still in the first 10 minutes of the game, and we should be coming up on our first intentional death. So our plan is to get killed by the first boss, because that will give us access to the Roundtable Hold, which is really sort of the hub of this game. Once again, there is no need to kill this Scarab. This weapon art is not something we're going to be using, although there are a lot of builds that use that weapon art to great efficiency. It is actually very good, but we are not going for a Wild Swings build here. Wild Strikes, excuse me. Because we are going for a Flame of the Redmanes build / cheese. So, how this build is going to work, as we have some time to kill here, is essentially the weapon art does an overwhelming amount of stagger damage, which is to say, when you hit an enemy with your weapon art, you come very close to hit stunning them. Once you hit stun an enemy, they essentially go into a state where you can basically backstab them or critically strike them from the front. And considering the weapon we're going to be using, it's called the Miséricorde or the Misericorde, however it's pronounced, it once again will have an enormous critical bonus of 140. So we're going to go ahead and let Margit take us out here, which when I first started Elden Ring, this boss took me out a ton of times, even when I wasn't trying to die. So at this point, I rarely run straight to him because I like to use the exploration to my advantage. So take the death, and then we can rest at this Site of Grace. And this will get us to Roundtable Hold quickly, an area that we will need to spend a decent amount of time in during this run. It will help us get some earlier golden seeds, but most importantly, it is going to allow us to purchase a dagger, which honestly is pretty important for this run. So we're going to go ahead and take the warp here, So you can see there is a lot of downtime on the run, and there's a loading screen I should have edited out, but we are not going to go back and get that at this point in our recording. So give it a quick bow, because this would be our first cut in the content. So now we're in cut 2. Nothing's been edited out between scenes, just took a little breaky break before we went into the next phase here. So back to Limgrave, and now instead of heading towards the boss, we need to head towards, follow the road here in the opposite direction, as this is how we get to Caelid. Caelid is an area I would describe as a very large blight town with a swamp that makes you very sick. This game has, and you'll see I accidentally hit my Windows key there. That's my bad. Not part of the plan. Not a big deal. Back on Torrent. And you can see we are checking our map to see where it is we're going. So we need to head across the bridge here down south, because we want to reach the 3rd church of Marika, excuse me. And the reason we want to do that is we want to get the free flask, the physics flask that you get early in the game, or you can get early in the game. What the physics flask does is it lets you mix different items you find throughout the game to give bonuses, such as, you know, an extra healing flask, or a flask that gives you mana, or excuse me, FP plus HP, or a flask that boosts your stats, or gives you more poise, or gives you more damage, gives you damage resistance to a certain thing. So it's a very flexible item. Early on, you don't necessarily have a lot to mix in it, but it does give you a free half flask of Crimson Tears, which is worth grabbing, particularly because as the game progresses, it will be absolutely killer. Well, once again, we do not need Determination. That is not a weapon art we're going to be using, although a lot of builds, once again, do benefit from Determination. Take a quick detour here to the right, and you can grab another smithing stone here from my man sitting out the chair in the wilderness. Heading back towards the road here. Okay, so the road splits, and we want to go north along the split. We do not want to go south. South does have valuable items such as golden seeds that are easily grabbed, and it makes a lot of sense to head down there later, but for our purposes, we're not going to head that way, at least not yet. And going that way will not be covered in this video series, because we're once again trying to get the Golden Scarab in under an hour, which, of course, being that this is pre-recorded, I do know that we comfortably succeed in doing. So, once again, following the road, nothing too particularly exciting here. There's not much you can do wrong if you just follow the path. You can see now that little, I guess, marking on your map that isn't done by the player is actually the map fragment location. So if you run down and locate it, it will reveal the entire map. So I recommend generally detouring for them, because I will detour for them on my run. So it'll take this sort of map out of gray, and for the extra, 30, 45 seconds it takes to grab the map fragment, there's really no reason to play with a dark map. So you'll see the map fragment is there on the left. Grab the cookbook while we're there. I rarely craft anything, but if you wanted to, those do give you cooking recipes. All right, so now we have the Limgrave East map, which leads us to start running back north. As we make our way towards Caelid. You can see I'm just double checking my route here. I don't actually spend a lot of area in this part of the game. So a lot of time in this area for the game, so sometimes I don't know all my landmarks, but I never get too lost on the run, which is good, because if you're sort of mirroring my movements, if I spend a lot of time going in the wrong directions, that's going to be absolutely distracting. So here is the church I previously mentioned, where we can grab the Wondrous Physics Flask, and we can also grab a Sacred Tear. Sacred Tears increase the potency of the Crimson Cerulean Tears, so it basically makes our healing stronger, because there's, of course, a 2-tier path for upgrading those. There's, of course, the one side where upgrading it gives you additional flasks, and the other makes your flask stronger. Make the split more HP for the moment, and then here is the Physics Flask. You'll see all we have is the ability to mix in some slight HP restoration. Nothing too exciting here. Checking the map again and mounting Torrent. So, there is a teleporter stashed away here in the swamp that will take us deep into Caelid, to the Bestial Sanctuary, which there is a quest that reveals the location of this teleporter to you, but you don't really miss anything by just finding it yourself. So we hit the Dragon Barrow here. We're going to go in here and hit this Grace, because we will want to warp back here later. There's a quest giver directly in front of us, which is in no way consequential to this build right now, so we're not even going to interact with that NPC. He doesn't go anywhere, but he's useful later. You'll see there is a big gargoyle there that I think is pretty challenging, so I'd recommend not engaging him for the time being. One thing that's really cool about this build is as the Golden Scarab increases the runes drop from enemies, since you're getting it very early in the game, you can actually wear it for most of your boss fights throughout the game, which actually results in a net of a ton of ruins across all those boss fights, and of course all the other encounters you have during your playthrough. Because I really don't like to grind too much, and this doesn't really take that long to do, and you get a lot of just sort of what I would classify as early game essential gear along the way. There isn't a big downside to running this route. So we'll cross the bridge here. All right, there is a big boy dragon here. There are a lot of ways to cheese him in the early game if you're looking to get some quick ruins, but that's not something we're particularly interested in, not because this run is, once again, essentially designed to get us more ruins in the form of wearing a talisman. So saving him for later will result in more net ruins, which is very good for our run. So power through here. Now we're going to be in a big region as we sort of roll into Caelid, and we're trying to reach Fort Farroth, which has Radagon's Source Seal, which is just an amazing item. Got distracted. I thought these were consequential. They are not. We're going to pass another boss here. This is a world boss you'll fight tons and tons of times. They typically allow you to upgrade your Flask of Physics, but once again, that's not something we're interested in right now, nor are we properly equipped to make the fight anything but tedious and miserable. Because of course, anything can be defeated at essentially any point in the game if you've quote-unquote gotten good, but sometimes the fights just aren't designed for you at that stage in the game, and other than challenging yourself, it's basically sort of like beating your head against a brick wall to try to prove something, because very few bosses gate progression in Elden Ring. So if you're really stuck on something, I recommend ditching. So this is the part of the run that most people have probably seen elsewhere on YouTube if they've been, Googling tips. This giant dragon here can be killed by bleed weapons, essentially no effort, resulting in a ton of early game ruins, like 20 free levels, something like that, which most runs do. I typically run it as well, but in this case we're actually going to skip it because we don't need it for what we're doing, and I reiterate that the Golden Scarab will actually give us significantly more ruins when we bring them down. So if you feel like you need the early levels, you can get a bleed weapon and take them out early, but that's not something that I think you need to do. I think I would just focus on getting your Miséricorde, and really getting the Golden Scarab, the namesake of the upload here. So into Fort Farroth we go, not Farroth, Farroth, so there's a lot of locations in this game. So if you're lucky, you'll make it up this ladder and you won't get poisoned. Regrettably, I am not lucky, and I am going to get poisoned here. Yep. So not much you can do about that. Just keep it moving. Up here you'll get the medallion. This is important later as it opens an elevator to additional content, but right now it's essentially worthless to us, but it is directly along the path, and there isn't a lot of things that you need to come back here for. It's very possible you'll never return to this area an entire run, but you absolutely could. Nothing here becomes gated off at a later point in the game. So turn the corner and take the jump. I reiterate, you have to turn that corner and take the jump down here, around the corner, grab the Source Seal, and take the death. This is much quicker than making your way back out of the fort. You'll just respawn at the last set of grace you were at, which is essentially what we want to do here. So back to the Dragon Barrow, get the Source Seal, which lets us switch over to the Lordsworn Greatsword, which has a slightly higher critical hit than other weapons available to us at this exact moment. Although we could go get others, but this is completely fine for what we're going for. So you'll see we just cut into a different part of the video. So off to Storm Hill. And the reason we're going to Storm Hill is now we needed to get Flame of the Redmanes. To get Flame of the Redmanes, we basically need to go back into Caelid, only we're on the western side of Caelid, because before we were on the far northeast tip, and it's quicker to go this direction, in my opinion, than to run down the other way. It's also more straightforward, easier enemies, and it lets you hit another couple of useful items along the way, including a boss that I would not describe you under any obligation to fight, but it is very easy, and it does get you a spirit summon, which I would go ahead and grab for the 2 minutes it'll take you to get it. It will make subsequent content easier, and in my opinion is one of the easier summons you can grab early game that pulls a lot of aggro. That is of course the Skeletal Militia, which you'll see me get here later on in the run. For now, of course, we're going to run through this fort. Nothing here that you absolutely need, but if you want to spend some time here, you can. Once again, you don't actually have to run past all this content. You could play it if you like, but maybe not a lot of sense in doing that if you're watching a video that's about, Speedy Gonzalez here to get, I guess, the best early game stuff you can. So here's an NPC quest 9 for Alexander. He's going to talk to you and ask him to whack him out of the hole, which I think is pretty funny, and once again, it's on the way, and I don't want to miss it, so I'm going to go ahead and catch it. But once again, this is not a required stop. You could just keep running down the path below you. Blast Alexander, the giant pot, out of the hole. Get a free Exalted Flesh for our trouble. And off we go. Double checking my map to make sure we're going the right way, which we are. Down the hole we go, straight ahead we go. Hit another set of grace. Pumpkinhead up ahead. You'll see pumpkinheads throughout the game. They're sort of a fun enemy that has all sorts of interesting mechanics. They freak out when they smell blood, which is something you can actually do if you bleed an enemy, etc. There's a lot of little lore mechanics like that that if you're looking for, you'll find. They don't modify gameplay too much, but they are fantastic attention to detail, as Elden Ring has come to show us. There is nothing this merchant sells that you absolutely need. The reason I swung by is I want to get him marked on my map for later, so that I can buy pots from him and other items that are very nifty. But once again, no need to stop. And here is some coming to an optional part of the run. This is the boss I mentioned that bringing him down will give you a slightly improved summon, a spirit to call, but once again, by no means required content. Not a whole lot of strategy to get this guy. He's Tibia Minor, something to that effect, and he is essentially a skeleton on a boat. And I reiterate, absolutely no need to do this unless you want to, but I would strongly encourage you to do so. In we ride. So he's gonna disappear and reappear elsewhere, so mount up. So for me, Catch Flame would likely do more damage than the weapon I have equipped, but in a lot of ways it is easier just to stay mounted and kind of hit and run. So he will summon skeletons as you fight him. I would encourage you to ignore the skeletons and basically just bop him. Most of attacks are close range. He either sweeps water at you or he goes in the air and hits you. Right now my wolves are probably fighting skeletons elsewhere, which makes them essentially not useful, but I don't really have a summon that would have been better here. So you'll see he's in a stun state. This build will be about putting enemies in that stun state nearly constantly, but the tragedy is this guy, even if you put him in a stun state, there is no riposte to my knowledge. You can only basically just take the free damage when he's down, but that could be wrong. In any event, you don't have to think about it too hard. Just keep thwacking him. As he takes damage, he does disappear and reappear elsewhere. Ward him down with a horse. You'll fight this boss a ton of times if you're taking out all the content in the game. He does give death roots, which is an item for what I think is a pretty cool quest line. Finally, the wolves are getting in on the action. They'll probably do very little total damage because one of them has died and the other two are near death. This guy's huge AoE, so he kills your summon super quick. I'm getting hit stunned by the skeleton army there. So sometimes the best way to deal with this is if you find yourself getting dogpiled by skeletons, just kind of run away, pull the aggro elsewhere. See, I'm taking some beats here. The nice thing is his AoE does hit his own dudes, which is also a great thing. It's just bait the AoE so all his ads go down. And we got him. Felled our enemy. That will give us some quick ruins, but more importantly, it will give us Skeletal Minuteman ashes, which the nice thing about these dudes is, once again, when they go down, they actually respawn just like the skeletons you were fighting there. Now, the boss can permanently kill them if they attack the bones while they're on the ground, so sometimes you have to kind of work to keep your skeletons alive, but it's not necessary to keep them alive in a lot of cases. It just kind of depends on what you need, but they're definitely stronger than the wolves for most bosses, in my opinion. So up we go. The reason we're stopping here is we want the Site of Grace and the Smoldering Church, and we want a couple cookbooks, which I don't really use for much, but grab them anyway. So this NPC invader here, because I was invaded, I was forced to dismount. This is, of course, an invasion by a non-player. I am playing offline for this upload. So you don't have to fight this. I like to, because I think it's kind of fun. If you are going to fight her, I recommend not trading with her, as the weapon probably does more damage than anything you have right now. I recommend chaining a bunch of jumping attacks, keeping your distance, and baiting. She has significant reach on her weapon art, as you can see. Swing, swing, swing. If she walks into your R2, you can break it, but in that case she didn't. So anyway, good hit stuns from the Lordsworn Greatsword here. It goes down. We get the Scorpion Charm, which does let us deal more damage at the cost of taking additional damage for the right elemental type, which regrettably this is fire-centric, and that isn't fire. So not really useful at all, but it was right there, and on certain builds, it is very handy. Once again, we are into Caelid proper here, which is essentially a wasteland. Hit the Site of Grace here. Now, this is where I'm going to get a little lost, because I don't spend a lot of time, once again, in this region, but not too lost. I will correct myself here. I do leave it on video because it does become a decent point of reference if you too are lost. Basically, we're trying to find a scarab here that has the Flame of the Redmanes, which is basically the namesake of the video. And when you get to the Finger Crone or the Telescope, is an important area for me. So that scarab, there's no need to take it out. It is an area that's kind of full of ads, so just going to skip that. No need. See this ruin here on the left, nothing in there that we need. Riding towards the marker I placed, and you'll see there's a fortress in the distance. That is what I would ride towards if I were you and you didn't know this region very well. Now this is kind of where I go the wrong way. Going north past this little ruin was kind of unnecessary. You can just follow the road and ride directly towards the Telescope, because there is a Site of Grace there. There's the Finger Reader Crone. So we should backtrack here and hit the Site of Grace directly behind us by this wall here. Yep. And this is a very important Site of Grace, as this will be a central warp for us to come back here, because the Golden Scarab is very close to this location, but we are not quite in a position to get it right now. The boss would eat us alive and would eat most players alive. So the general region I have marked is the area you need to run towards to get the Flame of the Redmanes, which will really mark us as the halfway point. Keeping in mind, we lost a solid 15 minutes to just early game content, get your horse, get to Roundtable, get access to a couple things, so on and so forth. See, this is where I officially become lost. But don't worry, I'll find my way. So I actually just need to round that corner, but I get a little lost because everything kind of looks the same to me. So I'm going to ride up towards the fort. Absolutely no need to do this. There is no need. Nothing you need is in the fort. I repeat, this is all me being lost. This is bad guide work. Bad guide work. Do not do this. However, the reason it isn't edited out is I wanted to show if you absolutely do get lost, if you're right up to the fort, it becomes a decent point of reference to find where you need to go. So the gate to the fort is, of course, closed. We can get around by going around the back side here, but we are not going into the fort. Like I said, this was all me being lost. But from the fort, if you basically ride directly away from the fort, now this is just going to give me flasks. There's no need to get this bug here, but I'm going to. So there we go. Teardrop Scarab will restore our flasks. We got to get out of here. Don't need that for anything either. So now if you just ride down the cliff from the fort, the Site of Grace you're looking for is directly under the cliff, right here behind us. Yep. So if you can't find this Site of Grace, ride up to the fort, and then ride straight down. My loss is your gain, etc. So you'll see there is an invisible scarab. That has the weapon art that we want. Now, if you have abilities that auto target, like phalanxes, it will take the scarab out right on the spot. Or if you have sort of an AoE you can leave on the ground and it runs into it, that'll also take it out. It only has, 1 HP. You just have to tap it. So I don't have any of those tools, and if you're following this guide, you likely won't either. However, if you just hold position where I am, missed again, but that's okay, it's gonna sort of come along this pathway, and I find it's easier to stand in its path than to sort of chase it around, because it is faster than you in most cases. So I'm following it. It's like playing baseball, softball. So now we have the namesake of the build, which is Flame of the Redmanes. This will make our elemental scaling fire, which is very important for later, but also it does, once again, that incredible stagger damage we discussed. So we're going to put the Ash of War, Flame of the Redmanes. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and put fire on my weapon because I do prefer fire damage at this stage in the game to just straight physical. Warp back to Margit, the first boss, because knocking him out will give us a talisman pouch, which is probably one of the most valuable things in the game, but more importantly, it will give us access to Stormveil Castle without taking weird skips and shortcuts. Alright, so you'll see the fire coming out of my weapon is Flame of the Redmanes. 2 hits and they enter this stun state, which allows you to walk up and give them a big wallop of damage. Now I have my jellyfish here doing damage. If you let the jellyfish hit him enough, he will actually become poisoned, which he is vulnerable to poison, so that is a fantastic way to get some free damage. Now this is where I get a little bit sloppy. You should pull aggro for your jellyfish. I'm being a little bit impatient here. He also has very long combos that I'm not practiced in roll dodging. It's been a minute. The nice thing is demonstrating that you can really not know your fights and play very badly and still win. So 2 hits are strong enough to stagger these enemies. It does roughly 40 poise damage, so 2 strikes from that typically is enough. Not always, but typically. See, we still haven't poisoned the boss. My jellyfish friend has missed a lot. The fire itself doesn't do a lot of damage. Margit has decent fire resistance, but of course the criticals, it's just hitting for tons. Missed because he aggroed the jellyfish. Tried to go in. Margit turned on me. It's again not a good look. This is one of those fights where you realize upon rewatching yourself, like I really was overthinking it. Like I could have just baited easy swings and just got him. Thankfully though, he is down first try. Very minimal effort there. Very sloppy fight. And that will tell you sort of how the rest of your build will go if you really lean into that weapon art. So, got my empty talisman pouch, which is awesome, because that will be the talisman pouch we're going to use for our Golden Scarab. So up to Stormveil Castle. Now, I'm going to dump all my runes I got up to this point. If you have a different build in mind, you do not have to do this. I reiterate, you do not need to skill any of the things I skilled just now. That is an entirely optional part of the run. I think early game Vigor is probably the best thing you can level, aside from requirements to use your weapons, but since the Source Seal tends to cover most of what you're doing, You know, I honestly think everyone should just pump Vigor early game, unless you have a very specific need. So we're now approaching Stormveil Castle. This is an absolutely gigantic area. And this is not a full run of Stormveil, not even close. So you'll see this guy here, he has a quest line. I don't recommend attacking him, but I would always tell him that you want to go to the front gate because this will cause him to open the front gate, but probably the more sensible way to go for most players is to take the shortcut, and for what we're trying to do, I prefer to take the shortcut around than to go through the front. There is a lot of upgrade stones in this area, there is a lot of good stuff in Stormveil Castle, so once again, there are more complete runs available if you want to find all the items here, but once again, for our purposes, we are just trying to get the Miséricorde, which is, once again, a dagger with an incredible crit, which we're going to pair with our busted weapon art, which it's going to be some downtime here in the video as we just sort of navigate the castle, which is going to give me a chance to talk about my take on weapon nerfs. I really don't like nerfing weapons in PvE unless it's jacking up the PvP environment, or it's just so ridiculously overpowered in PvE that it just cannot be allowed to excel, like it's glitched. And I do not believe that is the case for this. There are some challenges in the bosses even with Flame of the Redmanes. There's still plenty of content. So anyway, I strongly encourage against this whole attitude of, I saw a good build on YouTube, you know, it's trivializing bosses, we should nerf it. Well, it's PvE content, and Flame of the Redmanes is total crap in PvP, which I think Elden Ring PvP is kind of bad anyway, so just my personal opinion. So I am going to be grabbing a couple items along the way through Stormveil Castle. There is absolutely no need to get any of these items. You could absolutely run through this area and not bother, and that would be completely fine. That is not what I'm going to choose to do because, once again, I have a little bit of a item retrieval problem where even if I know I don't need the item, I know I'll never use the item, I still go and pick it up. There's some sort of completionist in me that just wants to grab every item available, but totally unnecessary. The quickest way through Stormveil to get the dagger that you want is just to run on through. Generally, fighting stuff in Souls games is optional. You'll see I rolled off there and lost a couple seconds. It's very possible to complete this run in far less time if you mess around less with optional content. You can probably get this whole thing done in probably 45 minutes comfortably, but like I said, I have not rehearsed this. This is like a legitimate first time run. So we need to open that door you saw directly in front of me, which means we need a key. So head here, grab everything along the way, smoldering butterfly. If you roll into these dudes, they get stunned, so if you have a slow swinging weapon and you don't think you can get your attack in, I recommend just rolling into them and using your rolling attack. Once again, no need to grab this item, just golden ruins, which you can pop for levels. Not a bad thing to have, though. I don't recommend popping them the minute you get them. While their value goes down, because it takes so many runes to level later that won't get you there, they're kind of nice to have if you get stuck somewhere, because you don't lose them on death, so you can suddenly pop them. So we're going to go in here. That door will be closed behind us. Now, at this point, I forgot to equip my torch, which you can buy from the first merchant. And because I do not have a torch, I'm gonna have a hard time with this fight. So as you can see, this enemy has a lot of range. I'm in a very narrow space, I can't see. Trading flasks into damage, which is really never effective. You need to... Of course, I'm out of flasks, so everything about this was executed pretty poorly. We use our physics to get what little HP we can. He's very aggressive, which is making it difficult for me to land Flame of the Redmanes. Thankfully, we managed to land our second one, staggering him for an astronomical amount of damage. Stands up, get the Wake Up R2, and we're okay. So now, as we start out the Prophet, we do have heal miracles available to us, which is pretty nifty if you play badly like that and you want to quickly top off the old HP. Typically, you use your FP for weapon arts and offensive magic if you're playing a different class. I don't really think heals, particularly that heal, is particularly effective. But in co-op, heals are great. Heals are generally great. Also, heals damage certain undead enemies like Revenants, which is amazingly nifty. D&D rule system. Are you undead? My holy damage shall hurt you. So now I'm sort of, once again, a little bit lost looking for items. The first thing we actually need to do is run in the other direction and open the door now that we have the key. So ahead we go. Like I said, you could definitely shave like 10 minutes off the Stormveil part of the castle just by being mission oriented instead of going off mission like I did. But up the ladder we go. And go this way. That dude will grab you from behind. If you don't want to deal with it, you can just know that he's there by watching this video. Turn and beat him down. Up we go. I do recommend grabbing the silver pickled fowlfoot. That increases item discovery while it's consumed, which is really great if you're trying to farm a particular item. But thankfully, this route doesn't actually require any farming. It just requires navigating to the required items. So in we go. Don't mess with that dude. There's no need to. Up we go. And then we'll hit a site of grace here on the left, which is good because Stormveil is a fairly dangerous place. It's pretty common to take a good bit of deaths here as a new player and as a returning player. At least I typically do when I watch other Let's Plays online. People seem to suffer similar problems. Tons and tons of hidden items in Stormveil too, by the way, along with these annoying birds. Fun fact, those birds do not enjoy gravity magic because it does pull them to the ground. As you imagine, something that flies and has blades for feet doesn't typically enjoy being pulled down to earth. So once again, certain things are weak to what you would expect them to be. And this is an NPC area that we're going to take a second to talk to the NPC. It's awesome the bird followed me all the way here. As you can see, it's flying, so I'm having issues getting a hit. There we go. Here is the NPC. You can also summon him for the first boss fight if that's something you want to do. He is a spellcaster. He also drops a unique weapon, which is a very strong rapier that you'll also get for free later, but you can take it from him, and it is really phenomenal because it is a thrusting sword that double strikes from its heavy attack. I believe, to my knowledge, the only one that does so. Also comes upgraded to +8. Fantastic, fantastic weapon, if that's something you're interested in doing. We are not, but I wanted to point it out since we were there. So, tougher enemy, not feeling like fighting fair, so got the bonus down on the ad behind him. Wake up R2, pass the night. As you can see, it also trivializes a lot of content. Now, if you see straight down, there is a fogged door. That is where, not by jumping, but that is the room we need to get our crit dagger here. Now, there is a Grafted Scion, which was the tutorial boss that most players will die to. You could kill it to sort of progress the area, as it will not respawn once you bring it down, or you can just run past it. I am going to elect to take it down because I am overpowered at this point and can just bring it down with a couple of staggers, but once again, you are not required to do so. All that content back there is optional and for once I controlled myself and focused on the mission. Now the item here allows you to get one of two things. There's a key item with the purple hue there. So the memento can be given to the woman at the shack earlier, which will get you a golden seed. If you progress the game and don't pick it up, it will later on become a unique hood you can wear that is, in my opinion, in no way remarkable, but if you're looking for every item in the game, that is how you would get that item. So we need to be a little bit closer, but Scion has erratic movements and can really close the distance quickly. So that should stun. 2 hits for a quick stun. good chunk of the HP. Flask up. Traded there. Would have been better to... As you can see, the weapon art is slow, so a couple seconds more and we would have actually staggered rather than taking the hit, but regrettably we took the hit. So the Scion is too big to fit through most of the doors in this room, so if you're ever in trouble, you can just retreat. Now this is funny because it jumps over my attack, schools me, kind of freaks out. So we need to get out of there. We're gonna flask up and got him. So the Scion is entirely optional. So now you're going to see me warp back to the Roundtable Hold because I realize I have not purchased a dagger yet. And for the tail end of this run, we do need a dagger, and I'll explain why when we get there. It'll make more sense to see it. So warp back to Roundtable and grab a dagger. If you had purchased the dagger earlier, there would be no need to go back to Roundtable at that point. That is entirely my fault. Thankfully, this does give you a nice fresh... if you ever leave and come back and you need to find your namesake item here, your dagger. Back down the elevator shortcut we opened. Make a left. I'm gonna grab this on the way through here, which that's a smithing stone, so that's probably worth your time. And you need to use a stone stored key, which we grabbed next to the shack earlier in the video. However, if you use it on a different door, if you forgot to grab it, you can actually buy one from the same vendor you saw me buy the dagger from. So no biggie. And finally, at long last, we grab both our Whetblade, but more importantly, we grab our dagger, along with a slightly better but still awful shield, because this class starts with a terrible shield. We're back to the Stormhill Shack here. This was also for a reminder where you could have picked up the stone sword key you needed to grab the dagger. So by giving this letter, once again, we're going to gain access to an additional golden seed. Not necessary, but nifty. At this point, we're warping back to Roundtable Hold in order to grab that golden seed, as she is now relocated to Roundtable Hold and will stay in Roundtable Hold for what is essentially the remainder of the game. Golden seed. And now the build is essentially done. Now we just need to switch our enhancement, our Flame of the Redmanes, to our superior dagger here. I'm just demonstrating we have both a quick step dagger and a fire Miséricorde. Now we're wrapping things up. So at this point, the build part of the video is done. You have your cheese. You've got your Flame of the Redmanes. You've got an incredibly powerful crit dagger. At this point, you would just go through upgrading that dagger as much as possible with all the smithing stones you find throughout the game, and spam Flame of the Redmanes on anything that is large, and just otherwise smack down the smaller enemies. We, of course, are going to go ahead and warp back to the Smoldering Wall, which we referenced earlier. And at this point in the run, we're now officially going for our Golden Scarab. So from the site of Grace at the Smoldering Wall, just run north, essentially, follow the wall, keep following the wall. You will come to basically this cliffside here, and over the cliffside is actually where you need to get. So don't jump where I jumped. I was just messing around. So you'll see back towards the wall, there's going to be a cliff face there on the left. That is where you need to jump. So multiple places you can jump there safely. You can also see a purple item down far below if you're having a hard time verifying where you need to jump from. So best way to do it is go to this ledge here. It's actually a pretty easy jump with Torrent. Across we go, and now we are into the abandoned cave. You'll also see this is why we bought a dagger and a quick step dagger and a torch. Torch because it is dark and I haven't grabbed the lantern yet. If you have the lantern, of course the torch becomes essentially useless to you. So you do not want to be in those explosions. They will likely one-shot you at this stage in the game. Do not roll. Rolling in this will make it worse. The walk speed is very slow. However, if you have a quick step dagger, you can spam the weapon art for relatively low FP and clear the Scarlet Rot without becoming afflicted with Scarlet Rot, which is essentially a very intense form of poison. On we go. You can slow down and grab items here if you want. You can take a couple deaths to grab items. There's nothing here that I consider particularly valuable beyond the Golden Scarab at the end of the dungeon, but that's definitely an option that's available to you. If you are doing this without a quick step dagger, which I do not recommend, you can do the back step to quickly navigate in the blight, if you will. It is quicker to back step across the blight than it is to straight run or jump. But once again, just easier to spin the runes and get your quick step dagger. In we go to the boss fight. Now, get your Skeletal Minutemen ready to go because they are going to be essential to pull aggro for you because soon there's going to be 2 of these folks. Spam your weapon art to put them into a stun state. And you'll see that our +1 dagger, complete with our stun, does a tremendous amount of damage. Same plan. Keep spamming the weapon art and try to keep your skeletons alive. You only need 2 ripostes per boss to bring them down. Once one is down, the fight is basically won because the other Clean Rot Knight will never have the opportunity to actually engage you. So, these are, in my opinion, the best add for this fight at this stage in the game without going way out of your way to get it. Continue spamming Flame with the Redmanes. You'll see that he did cast a healing buff on himself. That's why his HP was ticking up. It's also why he's still alive at this point. And down he goes. So the fight is very simple. Summon the Minutemen, spam your weapon art, try to get staggers so you're invincible during the ripostes, and bring them down. Thus, in less than an hour, you have a Miséricorde and a Golden Scarab. You're ready to rumble, you're going to get a ton of extra ruins, and you're not going to have any problems with really any of the content in the game. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, thumbs up if you did. Thank you very much, and have a great day.